welcome to the Esports Research Report presented by myself, Dr. Brian Macaulay, here at Jönköping University in Sweden, and produced as always by Nicholas Hendelkens, Communications Lead for the Esports Research Network. Today I'm talking to Dr. Seth Jenny from Slippery Rock University of Pennsylvania, and he's here to talk about the World Esports Artificial Intelligence Ethics Guidelines. So welcome back to the podcast, Seth, and please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. I appreciate knowing how to pronounce Nicholas's last name. Never knew that. So thank you very much. Appreciate the invitation. So I'm Dr. Seth Jenny. I teach in the Department of Exercise Science at Slippery Rock University in Pennsylvania in the U.S. I'm associate editor of the Journal of Electronic Gaming and Esports, senior editor of the Routledge Handbook of Esports, and co-editor of Esports Business Management. And if you're interested in proposing a esports research book, I'm the series editor for the Routledge Research Series in esports and video gaming. So reach out to me.
Brilliant. And I have to make this for posterity. Please tell us how old your wife is and how quickly she ran a marathon the other day, because it's amazing.
She ran 3 hours and 1 minute, but actually her previous marathon, she ran 2 hours and 58 minutes. She's 46.
I just don't recorded that for posterity because it blew my mind. So you're here to talk about, the thing that everyone is talking about, universities are using, or it's the biggest conversation in the world as RAM prices go up and water supplies are getting drained, and the world seems to be slipping into an increasingly lack of critical thinking. But one thing we're always asked about is, what about AI and esports? And I always have to say, I'm not quite sure I know how anything about that is going. So can you please enlighten us about the World Esports AI Ethics Guidelines?
Yeah, so the International Esports Federation, IESF, put out a call for proposals to create the World Esports AI Ethics Guidelines. And so myself and Dr. Ray Pastor from University of North Carolina, Wilmington, put in a proposal. The proposal was supported by the Voice of Intercollegiate Esports. And that call is really trying to come up with what would be some best practice guidelines for what are acceptable and unacceptable, i.e. ethical and unethical uses of AI, artificial intelligence in esports. And the main goal really was to educate and raise awareness of AI concerns in esports, protect competitive and governance integrity, promote equitable access, ensure player welfare and safety, and then maintain trust among the stakeholders, particularly players, teams, organizers, and spectators.
I mean, is part of that, like, often you're playing a game and you get called a bot for being
Yeah.
crap. But I think now people might be thinking this other person is a bit good. They could be a bot. Are we talking about AI in terms of people playing with AI agents that are unnaturally good? Is one of the issues that could come up?
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty common definition when people think about AI in esports. I guess definition is not the right word. A lot of times when people say AI, they're thinking about the NPCs, the non-playable characters within the game design component. And in our guidelines, we have a long operational definition of artificial intelligence, but really it would be computer programs that help simulate human thought and human decision making, and it can be used concurrently while you're playing. It can be used afterward to analyze data which has been collected from the game for performance analytics, and really it's more of analytical type of software that provides information and helps make decisions and provides feedback to the user on various things. I mean, so for example, broadcasting use of AI during broadcasts, you might use AI to provide in-game analytics and information to the viewer while the game is being played. And so that was one of the examples of what we found to be more um, acceptable ethical uses of AI in esports, as long as it's not providing information to the players that impacts their decision making and everybody has the same access to that information.
I mean, yeah, that absolutely does sound like a fair use because, talking to people as shoutcasters and analysts, I just have to go. I don't know how you do this. Like, I don't as a human, I have no idea how you're capable of analyzing this. And I have, thousands of hours of play myself. I still have to admire that capacity. So, I did have someone tell me last night that AI Dota team, beta team of Dota professionals, and the only
Oh yeah.
exception was there was no smokes because the AI couldn't register that for some reason. But we are at that Turing test of esports skill levels, apparently, even beyond it, with Dota players being beaten by the AI. So,
Yeah.
is that included as a training against AI? Could teams use
Yeah, so
AI?
that came up in there. I think that it that what was the data that was used to train that AI model? And so if that data was sourced ethically, where they pulled that information in that the training data from players with their permission and their consent, then and everybody has access to use that in training, then that could be ethical. But if let's say that two teams are performing a scrim and one team secretly collects data from the other team and then you trains an AI model to do practice against that team, then that would certainly be unethical.
I mean, but we've all kind of, you shouldn't upload this or that to AI, but no matter what you're talking about, someone has unethically uploaded it already. I mean, I'm sure that all of our research papers have been thrown up through ChatGPT by now or any sort of AI by students, I mean, how do you address something like that? How do you stop that? Who has the responsibility? Who's in charge of this?
Yeah, I mean, so the whole ecosystem really needs to be involved in knowing where you're taking data from. Has it been sourced ethically? If the data is publicly available, it's sort of a gray area, because if you know that it's been covertly, secretly taken from people without their consent, then it would be unethical to use it. But I did want to get into how the guidelines were created, if you don't mind me making a little bit of transition here.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
so the guidelines, we did a two-phase mixed method cross-sectional design, where we combined stakeholder input as well as expert validation, and we had two phases. So the first phase of the way that we created these guidelines is that we sent out a survey to 421 individuals across the world, that primarily were experts in esports and or AI and video gaming. 161 participants responded to at least the first question. That represented about a 38% response rate, which is actually pretty good for a survey. And they came from 28 different countries. 78% were male. And so we're pretty happy with that. We had about 25 questions. Some of them were closed response, but a lot of them were open response, asking what were their impressions of what is ethical use and unethical use. And we broke it down into first just discussing uses in esports in general. And then we broke it into ethical and unethical uses of AI use in training, i.e., like practice environments, and then what's ethical and unethical for during competition. And we created a draft version of the guidelines. Then we in that first initial survey, we asked if we create a draft of the guidelines, would you be willing to then give us more feedback on our draft of the guidelines to sort of finalize the guidelines? And so we sent a survey out to 61 individuals as part of phase 2 of this process. They were subject matter experts. 31%, 31 of them completed the survey of consenting that they would not share the guidelines in advance and give us feedback. 18 people then gave us specific feedback, extensive feedback on what they felt our draft guidelines looked like. They came from 9 different countries, and we finalized with 27 different guidelines that help produce like a structured consensus building amongst the industry, integrating empirical findings, stakeholder perspectives in alignment with the relevant literature and legal frameworks.
I think I did the first section of that,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I don't think I think it was me feeling, oh my god, I really this is I found it so not complex, but just so hard. And I don't usually find any sort of quiz or survey hard. It was, it was challenging to think about. It's as with AI in society, it's a very complex, morally ambiguous, ambiguous, or sort of ethically challenging, bandwagony sort of. It's a hard topic, isn't it?
yeah. I would say, like I said, a lot of people, when they thought about AI in esports, all they were thinking about the NPCs, the bots within games. And so then when we provided more examples and information to them, you know, what we really appreciated is we had such a broad perspective where we had people from a legal background, we had people from a production broadcasting background, we had players, we had coaches, we had managers, and so they all came from their own perspectives of AI uses. And so we created these 27 total guidelines. 10 of them were just general guidelines. 6 of them were specific to esports training. And then 11 were specific to esports competition. The one thing we really emphasize in the guidelines and in the report, and there's 2 different documents. One is the actual guidelines. The other one is like the report on how the guidelines were created. These are recommendations. This is not like everybody has to follow these and this is the law in esports. I mean, we have no authority for anybody to to follow this. This is best practices. We want people to adapt and apply these principles flexibly, and they're not prescriptive mandates. But we want also, as a community, these guidelines need to be reevaluated on a pretty consistent, basis, because AI and technology changes so quickly that they're certainly cross-sectional, meaning this was a snapshot of what's going on currently, but maybe 2 years from now, there's new information, new technology that these guidelines need to be updated.
Well, Skynet is coming, so I hope you start the guidelines with dear AI overlords. These are only guidelines, and we mean no offense. All hail Skynet. I mean, we're going to provide a link to the things, but I have it here, and it says there are 10 general guidelines that apply to competitive and training settings, and 6 training only, and 11 competition only guidelines address context specific considerations.
Yeah, I can give you some examples.
Yeah,
So
please.
some examples of the general guidelines, and this it would be like human centered oversight. We don't want decision making, final decisions being done by AI, and so you need to have human oversight. A a good example for me is AI flagged some of my YouTube videos as being like copyright infringement. Um, they banned my YouTube channel, and I've yet to have a human actually respond to any of my concerned emails about why was my YouTube channel banned. And that is not good human oversight of AI use, and that can happen with chat moderation within esports and live streaming. If there's no human to be able to interpret what's appropriate and unethical, because you know that's cultural. What is ethical is a cultural interpretation of what's acceptable and what's not. So you can have AI help look at data from a massive perspective, but final decision making needs to be left with humans. And so, informed consent is another general guideline, legitimate and ethical data sourcing, which we've touched on, legality and user agreements. So, what are the rules of the platforms that esports are being played on? Necessity of platform based opt out systems. So, um, for the user, we definitely would recommend that they have options for their data not to be used if possible. If people are using AI for decision making, we would definitely hope that people can transparently explain and justify that, that there's actually qualified professionals in charge of things, that AI is not used for harm, for toxicity. So, like, using AI as a type of intimidation or trying to get in somebody's mind, so you're going to be toxic on purpose to have them get off of their game. That's not an ethical use of AI for sure, that would promote toxicity. So that those are some examples of the general guidelines. Training specific ones would be, I'll start with one that was contentious, and we really didn't come up with a final stance on it. Is equity of access to AI in training. So some people were like, in their responses, were like, "Hey, if you're using AI for training, everybody should have access to that AI, to that program that was created." And some of the pro teams were like, listen, we've put a lot of capital, a lot of resources into creating our own AI practice systems. What would be the motivation? Why would we want to share that with somebody else who has less resources?
Or did less effort. Now, in fairness, it's not all resources.
Yeah, I
There's
mean, there's
marginal gains.
really, I don't, you can't expect that everybody who's using AI is then also going to share whatever programs that they've created with other people. But what should be considered is that the data that you're using to train those AI models needs to be sourced ethically with consent from other people and not taken secretly from others. So that's sort of, and if people are like, let's say a game publisher is providing some of their data to teams, what is definitely ethical is that publisher is sharing it with everyone, not just select teams. That would be considered unethical, for example. So then we'll talk about competition. Here's some examples. We talked about it using it for chat moderation and safeguarding, but yeah, using AI for people who may have a disability, so maybe a hearing impairment or a visual impairment. So augmenting some of the gameplay to help allow those people to be included in gameplay would be ethical. One of the things was sort of unique was using AI for voice moderation for people that are trying to disguise their gender.
You
Um,
mean women? I
yes,
mean, it
correct.
doesn't really go the other way. I considered doing my alternate in the graphic stuff with a female voice, and I was discouraged by I didn't want another female to feel I was an ally and be unethical in doing that.
Yeah.
So
And
let's
so
face it, it's only one way with that.
it's
For
all
for
about, yeah, it's all about is what you're using the AI for providing a competitive advantage. And if it's not, it's probably ethical. But if it is impacting decision making and could impact the outcome of the game, then either one, the tournament organizer needs to make sure that it is announced well far in advance of the competition and that everybody has equal access to whatever that is, or it should be disallowed during competition.
I think a big part of what you're doing is future proofing stuff as stuff develops.
Yes.
It's to kind of say, look, here's what's happening when stuff changes, because we couldn't imagine the world we're in 3 years later as professors with students and chat gbt and the ilk, and the issues are like every university is struggling to deal with the fact that if you're an ethical professor and someone's using a high level AI to write your papers, you're competing, and there's so many facets to it that I'm pushing my students to say, look, you need to be good in person now more than ever. And
Yeah.
what you seem to be doing is saying, look, we can't anticipate, but the way things are going, we can kind of say, hey, the minute someone can see or sniff an advantage, they will take it. And if the
Yes.
rules aren't in place, then they can go, well, there were no rules.
Well, and
We
that's
won.
part of this is education. It's, hey, I hadn't thought about this. We better start to get on top in front of this and make some standardized rules and recommendations for what we want to do. From an exercise science professor standpoint, one of the training guidelines, which is a really good one, is focused on certified human oversight for AI training and health related guidance. So some of these teams that don't have a lot of money to hire like a nutritionist or a exercise scientist turn to AI to say, all right, can you write up a nutrition plan for this player? And it's like, okay, well, this player may have a whole lot of other health concerns and considerations that somebody with no health background in training and certifications wouldn't necessarily be able to interpret whether this is safe guidance or not. And so those are some of the health concerns that you need to think about of using AI in esports training. That I want somebody who's certified, who's a professional, a health professional, to administer this health related guidance for the players, not just using AI because we think that it's accurate.
Fantastic. Well, as someone who had to redo their Swedish tax returns last week because a certain AI sent me wrong the first time, and I went, wait,
Yeah.
uh, you know. So the AI is fallible. So Seth, thank you very much for that. There will be links to Seth's own website and the AI guidelines under the podcast, and you're welcome to reach out and contact Seth for anything you may want to ask him about. He's always happy to respond. He's an extremely busy man whose own personal marathon time is even better. What's your personal marathon best, Seth?
2 hours 48 minutes.
He's a maniac. Okay, thank you so much, Seth.
All right. Thank you, Nicholas and Brian.